Morena, everybody. Welcome back to the reconvened hearings committee meeting and deliberations of the LTP. Even though we're reconvening, I would like to open with a karakia to set the day. Mai te paemonga raro ki te tai, mai i te awatonga raro ki te awaraki. Tēnei e te hapuri, awhi ai e taratahi. Whano, whano, haere mai te toki, home e, hui e. So today we are here to make decisions, having heard the hearings yesterday for our long-term plan. It's important that we all speak up and have a voice on the around the table, so with your opinions. And really importantly, we need to understand the members' appetite for and the principles about what we do want to include in the long-term plan. We do need to come out of this with decisions to then pass up to full council, so the long-term plan can proceed to be adopted in June. I will move now to recommendations on page 5 of the agenda. Recommendations 3 and 4, and I will take them both together. This enables us to then go into our deliberations. So the recommendations being considers each submission and other feedback received on the long-term plan consultation document 2024 to 34. Considers submissions and other feedback received on the rates, remissions and postponement policies. Do I have someone to move that, please? Thank you, Dale. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dalla. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Motion is carried. Thank you. After yesterday's hearings, it was apparent that we had kind of different themes going through on the submissions, and we had a little bit of a brainstorm. Lou, I'll have to flip you through a photo of the board. Still on here, Karen? So just kind of using this as a little bit of a guideline for today's deliberations. Can everyone see that okay? So, sorry, Lou, let me just send you through a photo of that.
Steve, just move that chair.
This chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Need a permit for that? Only if it's going to stay there overnight.
Probably.
Only out.
Now, the most important decisions that we obviously need to make, and they're all very important, is that we actually follow through from the consultation document items. And I would like to open up to the table the first option, or first consultation item on our document was transportation. So I will open to the table for beginning discussions. Don't all speak at once.
Well, just to say that the majority favoured the preferred option, option 2. However, from my notes, there was a number of submitters that spoke quite
Robustly?
Yeah, quite supportive of option 3, the increased spending for not so much promoting increased spending, but encouraging us to see the need for get things up to the best possible standard while we can before we lose too much ground. I thought there was a number of submitters who put that quite.
Councillor, I think you mean option 1.
Sorry,
Yeah.
option 1. Beg your pardon.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor. Yeah.
Option 1, which I found interesting given the size of the proposed rate increase and some of the other complexities and challenges. I thought there was a reasonable number of submitters who favoured that comprehensive option.
Basically, I found the same. I found the same reading and listening yesterday and reading to all the submissions. A lot of people said that roading is one of our core functions, and it is one of our core functions, obviously, and a really important one. Another thing that came through, definitely false economy to be going with the cheaper option in the sense that we could end up doing patching and substandard repairs, where option one provided for the choice of doing it once and doing it right, which I think is really important. Whilst option two is our preferred option in the long-term plan submission, the option one did come through with a lot of support.
Yeah.
I was surprised how many people come through with option one, reading it. We talked about the costs, one option two, saying we need to get the rates down. So we're sort of thinking two, but so many people did look at option one.
Councillor Lawrence, have you?
We've got a lot of sort of silent submissions, if you like, on the roading option. All the people who said we can't afford the rates increase are effectively saying option two, the preferred option, is what they're backing. They may not have specifically come along and talked about roads, but they certainly came along and talked about rates. The people who came and submitted verbally, I think I was quite surprised as well by the number of people who are quite focused on rural roads, because that's really what we're talking about. The other thing that struck me is that I think there was one who made the point that the rural roads are not specifically paid for by rural people, who are the ones who are advocating extra expenditure on roading. The burden of that falls right across the district. So I prefer our preferred option, but it's just right.
We can have a fair bit of discussion around this. Lou, over to you.
Just following up on Steve Lawrence's comment there about the rural roads and how they're only paying, I think it's 75 cents in the dollar on a lot of the roads, whereas those roads, like so many kilometres, are rural. And I think we've already passed the point of having this discussion, but I think it's an important thing to raise that the residential rate payers are still bearing a lot of the brunt of those residential roads. So that still doesn't sit particularly well with me, but I do agree that roading is a core function of the council. And I was surprised, how many people could kind of see past the impact on their rates to see the bigger picture and how important it is. And if we do it once and we do it right, whereas I think a lot of people's default position was purely because they don't want an increase in rates, then they don't want an increase in any spending, which means going for the cheaper option. It's just such a balance. I don't really know, but I think I can see both sides of it.
And I think too, we heard from a lot of people yesterday, but there was also people that put their submissions in that for whatever reason, maybe they don't feel comfortable speaking in public and didn't want to present orally or weren't available to. So we need to be very mindful of those submissions as well when we have our conversations today. So thank you, Lou. Councillor Cretney.
Option two.
Do you want to have any discussion or your thoughts around?
I think there's been enough in the submissions for the overall arching thoughts is that we need to be looking at the cost of living crisis and we need to be keeping the rates rise to as minimum as possible. So option two.
Deputy Mayor, anything further to add?
Only probably, and look, I mean, everything that's been said so far is bang on, accurate. I suppose I was expecting, I guess, yesterday to have comprehensive submissions in support of option 2 or option 3. As I said right at the start. Oh, sorry.
You're dyslexic on numbers.
No.
I'm teasing.
But option 1, as we talked when we were leading into this, was the option 2 is still a halfway house. It's renewals in 100 years when we know nothing lasts 100 years. So it's still a halfway house. The option 1, and I think a couple of submitters picked up on it, was that was renewal in 50 years, which was much more closely aligned, as we've talked, much more closely aligned with reality. So I just hope submitters and the general public is aware that the preferred option that we put up is still not the optimum where we need to be for maintaining a really fit for purpose roading network. So as I say, the fact that, in my opinion, there was a number of quite thoughtful submissions that supported rethinking that level. But I fully understand why we put up option 2 as the preferred option, as that middle ground. But yeah, I was if there was any way we could get to option 1 in roading and in fact wastewater, I'd be encouraged.
Thank you.
There was another, just if I can just speak to that very briefly, there was another submission yesterday which indicated that times are pretty tough for contractors as well. And it is just possible that some of the large increases in cost that we've seen over the last year or two, when there was more work and less contractors, might get a little bit more for our money.
Yes, Madam Chair, look, I hear what people are saying about option 1. Option 1. Overwhelmingly, option 2 was preferred at 67. Did a quick tally, 37 people said option 1. I think I'm taking on board the message generally. We struck at option 2 for reasons around rates increases, and it's going to be up to management to actually ensure that they prioritise appropriately, that those parts of the roading network that need the attention get it. And I guess if I only got one concern, one niggle, is that if we hit another severe weather event, it's going to change the picture totally. But on that note, we were always going to lean back to NZTA and see what we can't get in the way of funding. And as we've found already, management have been, the roading team have been pretty good at utilising the extra money we have got towards building greater resilience into the network. So I'm with option 2.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can only make decisions on the information that we have today. And I take your point, Ron, we can't forecast or see any possible future natural events occurring. So we do need to make decisions on today. Our ratepayers are hurting, and not just our ratepayers, but everybody around New Zealand. And I think Carterton District Council, and no different to any other council in New Zealand, they are all struggling with prioritising where their infrastructure spend goes and their rates team goes, and it's not easy times, and it's not looking like it's going to get easier in the foreseeable future. But again, back to, we need to make decisions on now. I agree. If we were able, option 1, whilst even that is not utopia, it does mean that we can do more than we're currently doing. But realistically, we do need to take into account where we are at the moment and sort of tailoring our decisions to the submissions that we had. As we know, there was 38% in favour of option 1 and 60 something percent, or whatever, Ron, you said 60%, for option 2. So, I mean, my preference also would be at this stage to go with the preferred option for the transportation costs. Is there any other discussion around the table, or is everybody happy if we move to a decision and a vote? Yeah, Councillor Dalla.
Thank you. Yeah, I've just got one comment in, perhaps we need, I understand that we need to look into the roading rating system that we've got at present, and we do have to have a further discussion. And one of the things that did come up yesterday was the differential ratings on roads according to land use. That encompasses everything from forestry to lifestylers. So I think we do need to have a look at that and work out a better system or an alternative system.
But that will be
we need to
we need to do that after the long-term plan.
Yes.
So that will be sort of a conversation. I agree. I think especially with some of the submissions that we heard yesterday and what other councils around the country have done, we definitely we can look at other options and see if they would be fit for purpose for our district. So before I go to a vote, is any other comments, Lou? Anything else from you?
No, I just echo what Brian said. I think it would be awesome if we could have a look at the whole thing after the LTP.
There being no more discussion indicated, I would like to move to putting to a vote that option 2 is the preferred option for us to adopt for our LTP. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Lawrence, seconded by Councillor Gallen. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? So option 2 is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Can I just abstain? I'm so on the fence. Is that
So
fine?
Lou has abstained. Right, so then moving on, the next consultation document item was the wastewater plant upgrades. So for this one, we do have 3 options on the table. Again, I'd like to open it up to the members for discussion, thoughts, conversation, questions. Don't forget that we do have the management team here, so if there are any further questions you would like to put forward, I open the table. Who would like to go first? God, you're all quiet this morning.
I prefer option 3, and the reason for that is because we've got so many other things that we need to discuss prior. That includes that will all have input into our final number that we come out with. So my preferred choice is option 3, which again is looking at the cost of living crisis and what our ratepayers have said about keeping rates to a minimum.
Yeah, I think option 3 would be a retrograde step in that it's well acknowledged that we've got work to do in the waters, and I think doing nothing would not just stall but actually put us behind. I mean, there was a lot of submissions that sort of not really focused on this but touched on it. I heard nothing that would sway me away from the preferred option. I think that's acknowledging we've got work to do around odour. We've got work to do around, I mean, the whole 3 waters landscape is a very unknown quantity, but we still have to do business as usual. We have to manage what we've got, and we've got to do it as responsibly as we can within the budgets that we've got. I guess the purpose of this process is to reaffirm the council's appetite for our work program. And at the end of it, we'll crunch the numbers and see where it lands. And then we'll start pulling levers to get to a number and still have a reasonable work program to get the job done. Yeah, I would still favour the option 2. It'd be great to do option 1, but there was no real encouragement through the submissions for that.
Councillor Dalla.
Thank you. Yeah, once again, wastewater treatment plant, non-compliance risk. I see it as a risk if we stick with do option 3, which is basically nothing. The option 2 to me seems to be the way to go. It's over a less spend over a longer period. It will ensure that we're working towards compliance, and we will hopefully fix our odour problems and our intake area. So, and I think they're the 2 probably most important to keep compliant.
I just want to speak now because I think there's some things that probably do need to be considered. And Dale's quite right in the sense that it might not be helpful to go option 3. And he's quite right to remind us all about 3 waters or the better water, local water done well. But we've just had a big meeting in Wellington, and the local water done well agreement is on speed. And there's a timeline that
Is on what, sorry?
On speed in terms of the process.
Okay.
And there's a timeline that all of the councils throughout the Greater Wellington Regional Council and regional area have committed to completing that proposal. There is a thought that we do nothing, then there's nothing that impacts on our line right the way through our 10-year LTP. And why would that be such a bad thing if, given next year, there is no line in our LTP? Because it's all gone, or it's 18 months from now. There is nothing that indicates that the wastewater plant's going to fall over tomorrow. In fact, the new aerator that went in and the work that's been done has given us all at our last council meeting the absolute assurance that everything's fine. And if it's fine for another 2 years, why would you do anything right now? We're going to lose that asset into the hands of a new entity. And, you know, whether that's a Wairarapa entity or whether that's a Wellington entity, it's gone. But what we put into this budget now and the impact that it has as you extrapolate it through over the 10-year period will be causing a degree of anxiety out there in the community. And it may affect people's decisions as we get on to deliberate further on these submissions as how we look at other proposals. Because for me, if you were to take option 1 on the wastewater plant, it would have me ruling out other stuff later on today. If you were to take option 2, I'd be very mindful later on today. If you're going through option 3, well, it's going to have an impact on the line. So wastewater is not going to be our responsibility down the line. Doing nothing does not mean to say nothing gets done. There's a new entity's picking that up.
We've had this discussion over years in terms of the 3 waters. And I think that what the council wanted to do was, based on the fact that we were going to pass the thing on to a new entity, we wanted to be in the best possible condition, knowing that our assets were already better than most, and our chances of being anywhere near the top of the totem pole when it comes to getting something done, pretty slim. I know it's all very, we don't really know what's going to happen or where it'll be, but
right now.
Sorry, can you just?
I get that.
But I think we do have a problem with odour. A lot of people talk about it. It doesn't do the town's reputation any good. And the chances of a new entity which is confronting Wellington basically washing away with treated water, comparing that with an odour problem in Carterton, I don't know that we'll get much done for a long time. So I think
just a reminder around the table that the decisions that we're making today is based on the information that we have today. As we know, the Three Waters was presented from the previous government and looked like whatever it was beginning to look like. There are conversations going on in central government at the moment about what the Three Waters may look like or may not look like. We don't for a fact know. We can only use the information and the concrete information that we have in front of us today across everything to make our decision. So we just do need to be mindful of that. I think we have to be very, very careful about the decisions we make and for the reasons why. So just remember to keep that top of mind.
Hear what Councillor Critney is saying, and I sort of agree with, in a way, where ratepayers, a lot of them are talking about, we don't really know rates when it comes down to, option 3 would be nice for their budget. But as I say, I'm sort of thinking option 2, but then as Ron said about, we actually don't know where we're going exactly yet. And if we went with option 2, don't have to stick with that because, as you say, things are changing every day. I'm sort of thinking now option 2, but as I say, could be option 3 if we just hold on to option 2 and not do anything. But keep in mind option 3. But once you've sort of locked that in, as I say, it could all change next week, next month, and we don't know where it's all going.
And also the options that may get put up today, once the numbers are crunched, there is nothing stopping us changing.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to I think we need to make the decisions so management can then come back with the numbers for us.
Yeah. So I say if we were to go with option 2 and then as Three Waters or whatever comes together and just changes, we won't end up with option 3 for now.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I'm just looking 2 at the moment.
Lou?
I agree. Option 2 is where I am sitting comfortably based on what we heard yesterday. I think the ability to meet compliance is important, and the foul smells is something that's raised often. And so, yeah, that's where I feel comfortable at the moment, given that's what I feel is best for Carterton with what's happening right now.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just on that, Lou, you're talking about the foul smells. To me, part of that is the desludging of the ponds, which is a totally different topic on what we're talking about right now. But just thinking about what council is doing as renewals already, which will help the wastewater treatment plant as it is existing, is the renewals along Lincoln Road to stop ingress of stormwater and so forth during events. So at the headworks, that's going to be of massive assistance, whereas where there was trouble before. We've just got a new aerator. That's going to help with foul smells. A new aerator on another pond will help with the foul smells. So that's just, I'm just replying to others around the table of why they're pushing for option 2 and why you can still possibly choose option 3.
Look, this is all good conversation, and I guess it highlights the fact that this topic is so unknown. And I guess what I fall back on is hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I mean, the best is that whatever option we go, an entity takes it off us within the 3 years, and that money we budgeted, if any, comes back to us and we don't have to spend it. The worst is that the entity takes longer than 3 years to get established or the rules set, in which case we are responsible for our Three Waters network for the term of this 3 years, in which case we need a realistic budget to actually deliver. So again, thinking about hoping for the best but preparing for the worst, I think option 2 still covers both of those potential outcomes for me.
Thank you, Dale. Lou?
Can I just ask for some clarification from staff potentially around that smell thing? Because for option 3, it says very likely increase in foul smells from wastewater ponds. So I'd just like some clarification around that, if possible.
He's sitting next to you.
Through you, Chair, just in terms of option 3, the proposed upgrades to the plant will make the overall treatment of wastewater more effective. So we're gonna, by doing that, we're getting more the more bang for buck from the desludging and from the aerators, because it all, even though it's individual components, it all works together. So if we improve the headworks, the product that goes into the oxidation pond is not as toxic, meaning that it's less likely to produce an odor. That doesn't mean it's impossible to have an odor, because something could happen. Just in terms of the infiltration that we get, that's currently being reduced by the renewals, that actually reduces the chance of odor, because it dilutes the toxicity in the plant. So it's not necessarily the same thing.
Thank you, Hannah. Does that answer your question, Lou? Any? Are you frozen? Does anybody else have anything more that they would like to contribute around wastewater treatment plant? I would like to put my 2 cents worth in. For me, I am in favour of option 2. I mean, ideally, I'd love option 1, but that for me is not on the table. So the risks associated with option 3 as a local government entity, our risk of not meeting compliance, of all of the resource consent conditions that we are obliged to meet, the risk of doing nothing, for me, just heightens non-compliance and breaching the conditions of our resource consent, which is not prudent management of our district, I believe. The other thing with doing nothing is that it's highlighted here as well, is any unbudgeted expenditure which may occur. As we had just recently, all 3 of the aerators failed. So stuff happens, stuff that we can't be prepared for does happen. So if we have nothing in the budget for that, we're still going to have to find the money somewhere. So just having that front of mind for me. I am very aware of the rating impact for everybody, but we also have an obligation to meet for the health and well-being of our community. And doing nothing with wastewater, which is mentioned before, is actually going to put us backwards. Yes, it might all be taken away from us. Yes, it might happen next year, but it may not happen for another 2 or 3 years. So we just need to be very mindful of that. And as I said before, decisions we need to make are with the information we have now, not guessing.
Wonderful. For anyone who wishes to read information, we'll send you all the data you need from the advisory oversight group, which give you an indication of timelines. So you read that at your leisure. that's all I'd say. You have information available to you around it, but you're quite right. It's a judgment call, and it's one which you take. Back to Johannes, if I might, Chair. Just explain to me what the risks are of being non-compliant and how that might occur.
So the risk of being non-compliant obviously is environmental impact. We're in breach of our resource consent, and then that could have further consequences. I think the biggest risk for us is being non-compliant around the wastewater treatment plant has got a significant impact on the Mangaterere stream, and I think we've made a lot of progress in recent times of how we treat the Mangaterere stream.
Forgive me, Johannes.
Yep.
Forgive me. I want to know exactly how we would be non-compliant. All the rest of that's
Okay.
just, we all know that stuff. How is this? Where is the danger? What specifically are we going to be non-compliant with that you said that you're concerned about?
So it's the toxicity of the treated effluent. So E. coli counts, dissolved solids, those kind of things that, so our consent has limits on what we can put to land and what we can put to the river. So we can be outside of those tolerances, which also could compromise the Greater Wellington nursery.
Thank you. Does that impact on our plans around the nursery as well?
Yes.
If you talk through that, please.
So we can only irrigate to land if the treated effluent are within the tolerances. So if we're out of spec, we can't even irrigate to grass, and that would be the same for the nursery. For anything, we'd be hamstrung with that treated effluent.
Okay, and how many times has that occurred since we've been irrigating to land?
I would need to get back to you. We do have spikes, but I don't have it in front of me now.
Well, has it happened?
To be non-compliant?
Yeah, we've been so non-compliant with the level of toxicity that we've had to shut down the irrigators.
Yes, so when with the new reservoirs, if the levels are too high, we can hold on to the water to allow for a longer take, or a longer reaction time.
So even if we're non-compliant, we have mitigating procedures that would allow us to hold that water until such times the toxicity levels were improved.
Yes, however, we do have finite capacity there as well. So we can run out of space.
But don't we have emergency discharge as well if those ponds get too full?
Yes, that would be an emergency discharge. However, it could still be non-compliant.
But being an emergency, we're allowed to do it.
It is not anyway.
Thank you, Johannes. Are there any other points, discussions anyone like to make? So what I'll do with this one, we have 3 options in front of us as part of the consultation document. I'm actually going to take them in order, and I would like to ask, would anybody like to move option 1? Okay, so option 1 is off the table. Would anybody like to move the preferred option of option 2 from the consultation document? Brian Della, thank you, and Deputy Mayor seconded. All those in favour, please show hands. Can't see your hand, Lo. Are you? Oh, yeah. Okay. And against?
I'll go against.
So that's 2 against, Councillor Crackney and Mayor Ron. So option 2 is carried. Thank you everyone for your contributions to the discussion. It's really, really worthwhile having them. And yeah, That's been good. Right, the next item sort of that what would like for us to open for discussions and conversations. As I say, this is just a list of the themes that we found from yesterday's hearings and from the submissions of those that haven't spoken to the submissions. So,
Sorry, just before we go down through that list, perhaps should we have a conversation around, is that list everything that people have on their list? Like, is there some gaps, or is there some things on there that shouldn't be on there before we work through them line by line as to
yeah, sure.
making decisions?
One of the staff, if they wanted it, can we have someone add to the board if that's possible? Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. Neat handwriting, please, so we can read it.
Those were essentially a summary of the general themes that came out through the submissions. Obviously, we've done the first two, which were a requirement, the consultation document. The others are matters that have been raised and put on our table from the submission process. So we need to deal with them in terms of responding back to the submitters. Some of those are asking for specific things, which we need to consider as a group.
Are we talking about items that have been included off the shopping list?
We can put that up there. This is what we're asking for conversation and discussion around the table today.
So it's talking about community items like upgrades to the event centre and so forth, and the spend on the operations yard and all those types of things need to be included if that's what you're asking.
Okay, put that up on the board. That's what today is all about, is having the conversations and then deliberations.
Potential staffing levels, knowing the growth, changes in growth that's predicted over the next 10 years.
Does anybody else have anything they would like as well? Is that or have you got more, Steve?
Jeff, just a question. I don't know the answer to this, but in terms of deliberation, are we deliberating on just matters that came through in the submissions from yesterday, or all matters pertaining to an LTP?
So I think your priority needs to be deliberating on matters that came through submissions, so that they were raised through submissions. But this is an LTP deliberation. So I don't see why there shouldn't be a conversation about all matters that are part of the LTP.
This committee reports back, the process is that we vote in deliberations and then we recommend to
So what
pass it to council.
So what has been voted today then goes up to council.
So if it's not discussed here, it's not discussed at all.
That was.
That's what we've just said, so it can be included.
I'm just saying, for Dale and Jim, so if we don't discuss the whole LTP here, there is no other opportunity to discuss the LTP.
Which is a point I was trying to raise about Grace being excluded from these conversations. If things are discussed, if we have to make discussions around the whole LTP of things that weren't included in submissions or in this document, which Grace has been excluded from discussing, when will Grace get an opportunity to discuss those items? And that includes the rates increase that has been put on the table.
Presumably when it comes to council.
Yeah, to the council meeting.
But that's either adopting it or not adopting it.
No, I don't.
That's it.
Adopting.
So point of order, Chair. That is the reason I asked for deliberations to be separate from this committee, because without the chair has made very clear the reasons why Councillor Aileen was denied the opportunity to sit at this table. And those are clear around some certain issues. But this LTP is bigger than that. We deliberate now without Councillor Aileen here. She is excluded from all deliberations. And that would leave her in the rather difficult position of not being able to vote in favour of an LTP because she's not been involved in any of the processes around the other matters.
A reminder that Councillor Aileen was invited to be in the public hearing so she could actually hear of all the deliberations. So she would be aware of all the conversations around the table, as she was invited to sit in on all the hearings yesterday. She has chosen not to, so that is her choice. Today, we are going through the deliberations. We are not relitigating what happened yesterday, and we do need to come up with some decisions today. The full
point of order, Madam Chair, that's a little out of order. No one is suggesting relitigating the decision. I, in fact, just reinforced your decision by saying you stated.
Okay, point of order. We are moving on.
I'm in a point of order. You can't take a point of order on a point of order. So that's my point. The deliberations are broader than that. That was my point, is why I didn't believe deliberations should be done at this committee. It should be done whole of council. That's all I'm saying. The consequences for that decision will unfold in time.
And that includes the email that was sent to us 2 nights ago at 8 minutes to 10 with a change of average rate number.
That's not.
So when will that be discussed, Dale? Because that influences everything we're talking about right now.
Take a moment. Please keep your voices low. Have respect for each other when you are discussing. We are all part of the same team. We do all want the best thing for our ratepayers. Please bear that front of mind in your communications. Dale, would you like to answer?
Yeah, fair comment. The numbers, as we've known since we began this process, the numbers are incredibly dynamic and fluid. And every day we have a discussion on this, the numbers are different because it's very much a moving feast. The process requires us to determine where our levels are in terms of these items that have come forward in the consultation document and through the submissions. And when we've given staff direction on our preferences, then the numbers will be crunched with the best information on the day. If we don't like those numbers, then we revisit our preferences up there, and we just keep working on it until we get to a place that we're prepared to support as a council. But that's not to say, as Madam Chair said earlier, or we get a weather event, or it's always going to be dynamic. We have to land in a place that we're comfortable, or the most comfortable, to put out to the general public. The fact that the numbers were the numbers 2 days ago are not the numbers today and won't be the numbers tomorrow. That's just the way it rolls. We've got to give council and staff direction on all of these topics.
But that will come as the result of that direction, and the work the council will do, the staff officers will do, will come back to council, won't it?
Yep.
I think.
No.
But you
Not prior to the LDP, not prior to you deciding.
Steve, please finish speaking.
Well, that was where I understood we would be, that as a result of the deliberations on the document that went out to the public and their responses to it, this committee would come up with a recommendation to council. It never occurred to me that would be a straight yes or no.
And then council can decide.
That is precisely the point.
They are decisions of the hearings committee which go forward to council.
Yeah.
Council will consider them, discuss them, and council's only options are, yes, we accept and as a decision, or no, we don't. If the full council says, no, we don't, it goes back to the hearings committee.
It doesn't. It's a decision by the council as to where it goes beyond there. It doesn't automatically go back to the hearings committee.
So the council will have the opportunity, the council, including Grace, will have the opportunity to review what
Decisions made. There is no.
When will that happen, Madam Chair? You're shaking your head, yes.
Yeah, tell
When
us,
will that happen?
tell us how that happens.
Actually, council don't agree to adopt.
If the council don't receive the recommendations from the hearings committee, then full council will need to undertake their own hearings and their own deliberations in order to come to a decision.
But Jeff, that's not the question. The question is, will the council get to re-examine? The council cannot re-examine the deliberation decisions made here. There is no discussion except, do you accept the recommendations or not?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Council did not hear. The hearings committee heard submissions and undertook deliberations.
And thank you. And that's why I said to you.
Point of order. Can the CE please finish speaking? Thank you.
So it would appear that the situation we have at the moment is Grace has been excluded from hearings and deliberations on the LTP. So that conversation needs to be had by this committee and come to a conclusion without Grace. And so that recommendation will then go up to council and will be considered by full council. But I think where Councillor Cretney is coming from is, at what point does Grace come back into the process of hearings and deliberations on the LTP? And I think the answer is she's been excluded from it.
Yeah.
So if I can raise a point to what Steve is asking, I think there was quite a bit of misunderstanding yesterday of what was going to occur surrounding the vote. And what was actually tabled in an email by Jeff as to how that was going to work. And I think there's misunderstanding around that. And I think if others around the table had understood the outcome of that, the vote might have been a lot different.
And I'd add to that, Madam Chair, that my request to the CE was to not recommend that deliberations be done here. But that was put into the agenda paper and you moved on that. I tried to say, but clearly there had been many discussions happening around the quarters, separate to this committee, outside of an opportunity for everyone to sit and discuss it and be fully informed, and the decision was rushed through. I would suggest you reflect on that, because I actually anticipate that becoming a problem. As I tried to say for a few days, one needs to take a more holistic look than a very narrow view of problems when they arise, because consequences always happen. And this is what I tried to avoid. Councillor Aileen's, the judgment, no problem with that. The chair, absolutely on point with great, obviously scripted advice from other people. Well done. But it's the consequence, it's the issues that are not part of that. It's whether we look at service requests, or whether we're looking at water resilience, all the other matters that Grace did Councillor Aileen did not attack. She has no opportunity to contribute to that in these deliberations. That is dead and gone. And I have a problem with that, just say it.
And I concur.
And I think, if you might like to reflect, this committee has the power to move a resolution of its own accord, and it could do that. But it have been very mindful of the chair's decision that there are some areas where the chair has clearly identified conflicted positions, and you might want to put a ruler through those ones when you're hearing submissions. But that's your choice. You're the committee. And this will not get rediscussed at council. That's it.
I think it's probably a good idea to have a 10-minute break at the moment. So I will adjourn the meeting until 10:05.
Yes.